can't stand the stuff.
Not even Wensleydale? What's wrong with Wensleydale?
Hi everyone, I'm the Broken Meeple. Win or lose, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm back. Well, sort of, yeah, back. I mean, I said on the podcast that I'm kind of able to do more videos and that, but there's only so much to report on at the moment. I haven't really got that many new games in the last month. You know, certainly not ones that really warrant a whole video. I mean, cough, Forest Shuffle, Smoky Mountain, for example. But so I thought, okay, well, now's the time to do a top 10 list. And so, you know, for anybody interested with the whole surgery thing, the appendicitis, we're now in my 3rd week. I'm able to go back to work. I can drive. I've got some of my mobility back fine. I just can't touch my toes. I can't run, and I mustn't go to the gym. So there's a third of my life gone already. But, you know, otherwise I'm doing fine. So thanks for your messages, but it's time to crack on with another video. So we're just going to do a top 10 list, and, you know, all my little chaps and mascots have come to welcome me back. But we're going to start off on a positive front, because as much as I am critical of games, you know, somebody's got to be, you know, where I go through the pros and the cons of games, the last list I did, or was it the last one? I don't know, the last main one I did, the top 10 overrated games, was fun to do. I love going off on a rant on some of these games, but of course, you get the people who just can't bear to see a nasty thing said about the precious. Oh! So to appease a few of them, let's do the opposite way round and do the top 10 underrated games. So this is games where on BGG, they are ranked pretty low, and also I don't see these games being played or being talked about. It could be down to distribution. I mean, they may just be hard to get hold of. I know 1 or 2 probably fit that category, but there are some which I feel like, come on, these are pretty decent games and they're ranked this low. Now, by ranked this low, the highest game on this list, I believe, is ranked 1800 on BGG. 1800. That's pretty low. I mean, given that most people couldn't care less about a game unless it was in the top 100, it seems. You know, Colt and the New, everybody here. But, you know, there are games that are ranked anywhere in the 3000s, the 4000s. One of them is even about 7,500. I think that might be the lowest one. You know, so there's definitely some very low-ranked games on BGG, okay? Again, not that I give the whole ranking system much cop, but I've got to use some kind of basis for this list, so I figured we'll start from there. Then I thought about, okay, well, I've got a very big list here, so let's cut it down and try and get, say, 1 per genre, that type of thing, because I noticed there was quite a few trick takers on the list, and it's like, well, I can't just make it all about trick takers, so it's like, well, let's take this one, and then we'll think about other games, you know. So I've tried to keep a bit of a spread list as possible, but yeah, these are basically just 10 games that I think are ranked too low, or they just need to be more popular, and I may understand perfectly why. It may just be that they resonate with me and not with others, but there may be some cases where I'm like, come on, this ought to be better. So, you know, if you didn't like the overrated games list, well, you can like this one instead. Let's crack on.
Get on with it.
So, for number 10, we're looking at a big box game that is very light. I mean, this is light, fluffy, about foraging for ingredients and making recipes. You know, it's a light, fluffy theme. It is one of the prettiest looking games I have come across. It's not the cheapest game ever, because you got to get the base game and then you want to get the upgraded resources for it as well. But even without them, it's still pretty nice looking. And this is an underrated little game I've got called Wild Gardens. It's this one right behind me, in fact. If I can somehow shift the chair, there we go. Come on, out you come. Yeah, it's this baby right here, okay? So this isn't like the best game ever made, okay? But it is gorgeous, and it is just a cool little light game where you move your people around this kind of like trail, and you forage different food items, and with it, you're using them to make recipe cards. So it's got a Splendor-esque type feel to it. But on top of that, you've also got these different like people that you invite round for your food, which you can serve them specific meals, and then they might give you an instant bonus, a passive effect, an endgame scoring condition. The solo mode even tries to introduce a story with the game, which is kind of a bit of a waste, but you know, the solo mode's fine, but the whole point of a story, why? But it's just a very nice pleasant game. You know, there are little skill tokens that you can get to make your things better, your actions better, so you can forage for more at a time, you can move faster, etc. But you're not outright blocking anybody really, apart from taking recipes they might like. You just play this in a light, fluffy, casual mood. Now, it is a bit long for what it is, so certainly if you put 4 players into this, it's going to take a while, but I think for 2-3 of you, this is a pretty light, casual game. It just probably needed to curb its length a bit. It's 90 to 120 minutes, and it really ought to be 60 to 90. I think it's half an hour too long, but it's just nice. You look at it, it's gorgeous, it looks the part, and most of these recipes I want to cook myself. I don't even know if some of them are real or not. Well, most of them are real, but there are a few where I'm like, okay, what? It could be like some fantasy-esque ones. But yeah, it's just nice, pleasant, and nice and pleasant. It's got like kind of almost a bit like a, not quite Studio Ghibli, but it's certainly got like an anime-esque feel to it, with the artwork and how it looks. It's just nice and pleasant. If they could find a way to cut the length down, that would be ideal. But still, I like this one. It still remains on the shelf, and I like to bring it out every now and again when I just need something, like a palate cleanser that isn't just a filler.
Okay, these are a maybe.
Right, I put it on the screen. The last one was ranked 3921 on BGG, right? So this next one is ranked 2284, and this is a worker placement game which came out from Overrated Games quite a fair few years ago, and nobody really talked about it, and it still doesn't really get played, although occasionally I bump into somebody at GridCon or the like who has the game and it's like, oh cool, we can play this. It looks the part, it's got Michael Menzel's artwork all over it, it's also, got a lot of resource management and some unique little twists that make it different from other games, and it's called Terramara. This one is a cool system where you gather resources in order to play cards that give you special powers and abilities. Now, okay, all well and good, but you've got 3 different sort of avenues that you can approach it from. You've got the caravan track, the water track, and the sort of military track, and each one gives you some kind of benefit throughout the game. It's difficult to do well on all 3, so you kind of have to decide which one you're kind of, maybe 1 or 2 you're going to focus on, or you might just be casual on all 3. But what I love in this is the system of the workers, because you start off with so many workers, and you can only go so far on your track, because the idea is when you put a worker on a space lower down on the board, you get more stuff, but you won't get the worker back for a long time because the round marker has to catch up with the specific row. It's like you're leaving your current area and you're going to migrate to somewhere else. But as the game goes on, the top rows flip over and become new cool action spaces, and the action spaces themselves, because you're getting closer to the ones further south, they get better and better as the game goes on. But you could, if you want, use a worker on one of those spaces early. You're going to lose that worker for maybe 1, maybe even 2 rounds or more. You might not even get them back ever if it's the really powerful action spaces. But if it's what you need, maybe it's still worth doing. And it's a neat little decision that you've got to make with this game. You've got special powers, it looks cool, plenty of resources. If anything hurts this game, it's that the game balance isn't that great. The special abilities that you have, where you get like a child and an adult version, and you can choose which kind of one you want. Honestly, I can't recall if those powers are optional in the game, but if it's possible to play Terramara without the player powers, I probably recommend you do so, because they are definitely not balanced, and that can cause a bit of a problem with the game. Like, I might give it to the people who are brand new to this, and maybe I'll take some of the harder powers as a handicap, but still, I kind of feel like the game is best played if you just don't have powers with it. Just play the game where everybody's on the same playing field, and I think that would work a bit better, because you get enough customization from the cards, the artifact cards that you're played, so what's the difference? It's also not the best at lower player counts, because you really want to play this at 4, otherwise you've got to deal with this neutral player, like block spaces aspect for lower player counts, and it's just a bit fiddly, a little bit weird, a little bit janky. So this game is not without its flaws, but I still really enjoy it, and do enjoy playing this every now and again. But it probably would have been higher up this list a while ago, but it has probably come down a point or 2 as time has gone by. But I still think that this one probably should have had a bit more love when it came out, because it pretty much just came and went. Like, nobody mentioned it at all. And yet there are other games from Overrated Games that some people will sort of rave more about, and I'm like, but I think this one was more fun. So, you know, Terramara is still a solid game. It's still on my shelf. But yeah, not without its warts. But then, don't most people, when they're dating others or something, sort of go, it's those tiny little flaws that keep you interested? Well, that's kind of the same with this one.
No matter what the tactic, they all have a flaw.
Okay, my number 8 is ranked 3008, and this is kind of going for my roll and write category. Because roll and writes, I mean, there are a dime a dozen. There are so many of these games, and there are some that I like a lot. You know, I love the Next London games. I think they're really good. You had the one where you, what was it called? Get On Board. You know, kind of like a flip and write in that sense. There's Delicious, you know, which I almost consider for the list. It's ranked fairly low, but it's the one that came after Feriferous and Herbaceous, you know, from the Pencilverse game, I think it is. So, yeah, there's some pretty good stuff there. But this is my choice of underrated, which is this little one from Grey Fox Games called Harvest Dice. And the idea with this is that it's a pretty simple concept. You're drawing a vegetable patch. So you roll some dice, you draft the dice, and whichever dice you pick, basically it will have a colour for the type of vegetable. So it's going to be green, orange, or red for lettuce, carrots, and tomatoes. And it will have a number for the grid, so you've got to place it on that grid, but you have to keep your patches for all 3 vegetables together. So you can't have a carrot patch over here and a carrot patch over here. They've all got to connect. And the premise sounds simple, and if you've got any spare pips left on your dice, you can feed them to Pip the Pig, and they'll get you bonuses and more points. So why is this one so much different? Well, 2 things. Firstly, the drafting of the dice. Because the price, or like the victory point value of the vegetables goes up based on the die that's left over. And I love games where you draft something and the one that's left over has a profound effect on the game. So that's already a decision space, particularly who's in last player at that last player at that point. But also, most of these roll and writes suffer from the problem that they're just basically multiplayer solitaire games. This one does not, because it's very easy to see what everybody else has got on their pad. You don't have this, you know, massive booklet full of stuff, you know, like for example, you're playing something like Tend, you know, that new one. Yeah, it's a fun game, but blimey, there's too much to look at other people's for you to care what they're doing. It's a solitaire game through and through. But here, you've only got to look at this tiny little pad that's about yay big. You know, it's a pretty small affair, so it's easy to see what people are doing on their vegetable patch. And, you know, you can play this in normal or advanced mode. So when I'm drafting the dice, I can not only make my decision based on what I need, but it's very easy for me to tell what the others need, and I can take dice potentially to hate draft in this. You know, there will be dice that I might think, well, I could pick that one or that one, and they're both kind of similar, but then you can't put a carrot there, and you can't do that either, so if I take this one, it's more annoying for you. And there's just little times like that where it elevates this one above just simply a roll and write. Game still barely takes like 20 minutes to finish. You know, it's a very quick and easy game to teach. Looks the part. It was just a, you know, and if you can find a copy of this, it'll be cheap as chips. I mean, I only bought it for like, you know, 6-7 quid or something. It's a really nice little, like, literal roll and write game for 2 to 4 players, you know, and it just, again, came and went. Nobody talked about it. Everybody focused on other roll and writes, but given how solitaire they are, the fact that this one actually makes me give a crap about who else is on the table with me, you know, has got to elevate this to a different level, and certainly higher than 3008.
I thought I smelled cabbage.
Next up, I'm looking at Drander Games. Drander Games, I think this is ranked, what was it, 2,682. So, you know, pretty low down. This is one of those games where, a bit like San Juan, where the deck of cards is everything. And this is another mechanic I like in games. So, you know, the idea that you've got this deck of cards and it will be everything you need to play. So it's the cards I need to play. It's also the currency I need to play those cards, and it might even be a resource that I need in order to do something else. Those games are always pretty solid. Well, Drander came out with one called Isle of Trains. Yeah, I can't believe it. A game about trains that I'm actually raving about. Well, I mean, this could be any theme, honestly. It does not have to be about trains. But the cool thing with this is the fact, is what I just said about those cards. So these cards are everything. You've got some other cards on the table that let you do deliveries and, you know, put passengers down and stuff, but it's mainly around these. So you're building, you've got like your locomotive, for example, I'll just put that there for a case. Here we go. There's an actual loco. And then other cards that you play, these are the currency to play them. But you can also, you know, after playing them, you can upgrade them. So you might have a level 1 caboose, a level 2 caboose, that kind of thing. And I'll create, there you go, there's my caboose over there. There's my level hopper. There's a box car, for example. I could have that as well, but you've got limitations as to how big your train can be. But then also the reverse of the card can be a particular good. So it's like, all right, well, this one is a coal. Okay, I will put a coal in there. And in doing so, I've now got a good to deliver. But the thing is, other players can deposit goods in your train in order to get the bonuses at the top of the card. You know, the card says, all right, if I put coal in here, I get 2 cards and 1 specific action to use. You know what? Yeah, fine. You can have a coal from my hand and use it as that. And it's like, that whole thing, it just adds a little bit of player interaction while giving you a cool setup of, like, you know, how am I going to approach this game? Main on deliveries? Am I going to sort out, you know, passengers in the bag? Am I going to just build a really expensive train for victory points? Game doesn't take long at all. It's very quick, very short, and it's just a neat little system. And it comes in a small box. I've got this sleeved and it still fits in here no problem, and yet it doesn't really get a lot of buzz. And when you see it on the store at Overrated Games now, it's always dirt cheap because not a lot of people have bought it. But I mean, the designers are kind of not that well heard of in that, but it's a really solid one. And I love the fact that now I think their copies of this have actually got my seal of distinction seal on it, the 9 out of 10 I think I gave this one originally. It is just a really cool game, and it's all cards, it's all small box. You can pimp this up with like a playmat and stuff if you really want, but I don't think you need to go that far. But yeah, I love trains. I never thought I'd be liking a game about trains. I mean, hell, they didn't even give me the game to review for ages because they thought I'd be mad at it because it was trains. Yeah, granted, I wish it was about something else, but just because it's got trains in the title doesn't mean I'm going to hate it. So, you know, this one is just a neat, clever card game that I think I would prefer. I don't know, do I prefer it to San Juan? A 9 out of 10, San Juan's probably not as high. I guess I prefer this one to San Juan, but, you know, the same mechanic. I like it in both.
Sometimes I don't believe I know you.
Number 6, we're actually going to look at a trick taker now. So there was quite a few trick takers I could have considered. I mean, we had Tidal Blades Banner Festival, I think is underrated. We've had 9 Lives, that's one that's underrated. But this one I've picked because this is easily the lowest ranked one I've considered here, right? The one for this list. And where is it again? It's there. 7,463. This is low down. But it's because of the distribution. I mean, it's very hard to get hold of. I got hold of a very cheap copy at Essen, and that was the only way I ever saw it. It's come out multiple times, but it's mostly, I think, from Japan, if I think correctly, and you might get it at conventions. It's not something that's hit UK distribution a lot, though maybe there may be 1 or 2 retailers that have it, you never know. This is a neat game that, funny enough, one of the helpers at Overrated Games actually told me about, called 7 Prophecies. This one is all written in Japanese, but frankly, it's, you know, you don't actually need much in the way of languages on there. Yes, it certainly does mean that your screen is not the most useful one in the world, but frankly, the game is simple enough that you don't need, like, you know, the screens to that extent.
Bonjour, crazy gibberish.
But the idea is that you're basically given a bunch of cubes and a bunch of cards, and the cards are just normal, here's a suit with a bunch of numbers on it, so nothing crazy. But what happens is that you have a bunch of, let's just use these for example, it's a bit easier. So you lay out a bunch of trump cards. So these cards, you know, they don't normally have numbers on them, I'm just trying to illustrate, but you'll lay them out, and there's usually about like 10 of these laid out, okay? Each player has got a sort of bidding card in front of them behind their screen. And, you know, down the side here, there will be a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. That's, you know, for typical player count for 4 players. And the cool thing with this is when you get your hand of cards, you can see through all the potential 10 rounds of the round, you know, 10 tricks, sorry, there could be 7 to 10 tricks in a particular round, you know which ones are going to be trumps. So I know that the first one here is going to be a yellow, and then this one is going, you can't see these, can you? No, sorry, I will pull these back. Don't worry, I'll fix that. There we go. So, you know, here I'd be saying that this first one is yellow. Okay, that's when yellow is trump, then red, then grey, then green, and red, and, you know, whatever. But what happens is when I get my hand of cards and I'm looking at how I think, okay, this could be good, you bid with the cubes in secret as to how many times you're going to come first, second, third, or fourth in a trick. That is a really cool, unique little system, because normally it's bidding about how many tricks you win. This is different. So I'll have a bunch of cubes here, and I'll put maybe like 3 cubes I think I'm going to win first, then 2 on 2, none on 3, and then I'll come last on a few. So then you play through the game as normal. You play through each trick, you know which one is trump, somebody will lead, you got to follow, that kind of thing. And at that point, you're then thinking, well, based on what got played, I could win this and get a cube on that and take one of my cubes off and put it there. But if I do that, am I likely to come last at some point later in the round? Maybe I should just lose this one, play my lower card, lose this trick, get the cube off my 4th space, reserve that one for later, hoping I can come first. And this is a really cool idea. You kind of know what the round setup is. You see your cards in advance. Can you predict when you're going to come first, second, third, or fourth? You have a little bit of control, and sometimes you're forced into it based on the cards you've got. But I love the fact that you're making decisions about whether you're going to deliberately tank yourself to be second, third, or fourth. It's a really unique and cool concept. And it's not something I've seen in any other trick taker at all. It certainly does throw people for a loop in their first game because they don't quite expect this kind of thing. But it's a really solid game, and I don't care that it's not, screens-wise, it's not language independent. Thankfully, the rest of the game is. It's just like, wow, okay, this is something really cool, really unique, and it didn't cost me that much money to buy at Essen. I wish it had better distribution, and I wish more people could get hold of this, but honestly, if you like trick takers and you see a copy of this at Essen or some other convention or some other way cheap, I highly recommend you give this one a try.
What am I, psychic?
Number 5, ranked 1642. Is this the highest ranking game? I think it is. I think it's the highest ranking one on my list, 1642. But that's still not overly high. And honestly, when do you see people play this? This one has been forgotten. It is out of print. I'm the one who shouts the praise of this one, and yet other people don't. It's this one over here. It's from Fantasy Flight, and this is my negotiation game of choice. New Angeles, based on the Netrunner universe that used to think a thing with Fantasy Flight. Does Netrunner even exist in any way, shape, or form anymore? I'm not sure. Is Netrunner still a thing? Is that card game still in existence? I don't know, but this is a cool negotiation game. You play as one of the corporations from the Netrunner universe, and the whole city's kind of going to pot. Power outages, riots, and people getting sick and stuff. And each one of your corporations is geared to dealing with one particular issue with the city. But no corporation likes each other. You have a secret competitor at the start of the game, which this is the person you must have more capital than at the end, right, in order to actually win. But in a large player game, which I do highly recommend you play this with 5, if not 6, all the time, not 4, you have a Federalist player. And so what happens is the city could tank. And if it tanks or you get to the end of the game, then whoever has the highest capital and whoever has beaten their rivals, they're the players who win. But the Federalist wants the city to tank. They're a traitor. So they control one of the corps, but the government's given them a sweet out if the city tanks. So they have to reach a certain capital level and then somehow get the city to tank, by putting in discord or not doing things they were meant to, hiding certain assets. And the great thing is that it's hard to tell who the Federalist is because everybody kind of feels like a bit of a dick in this because you're corps out with your own agenda.
You can trust me with your entertainment.
Nobody knows who your competitors are. They have to try and work that out. But each round you are bidding over these asset cards and they're really cool. They give you special abilities and everybody wants a piece of these. So you only have like 1 or 2 people facing off about them, and it's a case of, well, who do you want to have that card? If it's not going to be me, then who would I rather have it? And so the whole voting and negotiation side of things comes into play there. There's a lot of these unique cards. They're all pretty unique, but it creates such a good vibe. I mean, you're playing this for 3 hours. This is not a short game, but the negotiation factor here is like top notch. You really are negotiating with the other players. There's definitely some backstabbery involved. There's definitely some, craziness, putting in. I mean, I remember one of my games where I fooled everybody into thinking I was on their side. We got to the very end. I had to do something with android placement in order for us to not tank the city. And at the very last moment, I sent my androids to Lord knows where. That was stupid. And boy, could I pull the Clarkson smug face on that one. That was glorious. Federalist win for me. But yeah, it's really solid, but you're only ever going to find this on the Brilliant Buy now because frankly it doesn't really exist in any other way, shape or form. But I like to bring this one to conventions every now and again. So if I do, and you like negotiation games, you don't mind them going on for 3 hours, sign up for it because it is genuinely a solid one.
We've got to have money.
Number 4, ranked 2,417. I think a lot of these are in the 2000s. This one I'm actually kind of shocked by because it originally came out, I think, 2006. But even that version of the game is still in the 2000s, you know, so none of these games are in the, you know, higher than 2000. And this is the best version of it. It's come out in 2 guises, you know, and certainly I think the publisher has dropped the ball in actually bringing more of these out because they kept promising more maps for it and they just seem to be really slow on this mark. So I think that's probably hurt this game in terms of its appeal. But On the Underground is still a really solid game. Not without its flaws, granted. Not a game you really want to play with more than 3 players. But that's really the main flaw. It's a solid route connection game. You basically have this lazy passenger who, you know, is going to all these different landmarks on the board. And we've got, what, we've got New York, Berlin, Paris, and London, I think, at the moment, or something. And, yeah, and there were meant to be more besides. Where are they, eh? You know, I wish. But the idea is that this passenger is going around to these different landmarks. You are building your metro train network across this map with action points. And at the end of every player's turn, that passenger moves to the next landmark. But they do it by the easiest method they can. Doesn't matter how far they gotta go, they're lazy. So the passenger may literally only have to go next door to get to the landmark. But if somebody's got a metro that takes them all the way around London to get back to that spot without them ever walking, they'll do it. And so when you build these networks with all the players trying to like usurp each other, they're basically trying to steal this guy away from them because the more they ride your networks, the more points you get. There are other points to be gained by connecting certain things on the board, a la Ticket to Ride style, but yeah, this is a really solid game. It's super easy to teach. I mean, there is practically no rules in this game. Looks the part with its stark look on the table. Granted, 4 players and 5 players, it's too chaotic and it's too long, so I do cap this at 3, but you also have a little solo mode you can get as a little side thing, the Underground Challenge, where you play against an AI that has 2 pre-built networks with a set amount of victory points, and you play the game as normal against them, but you're trying to overtake their victory point marker. It's a really solid, easy solo game to bring out, and, you know, kudos. But I'm surprised this one didn't catch on more. Yeah, I mean, it was, as far as I'm aware, it was popular back in sort of 2006 time, and when it was brought out for a fresh new look, it just sort of disappeared. And maybe that was down to the publisher not bringing out more maps for it or something, or maybe not fixing the issue that more than 3 players was a problem because they tried to make it work with 5. Oh god, do not play this game with 5. You know, so you'd think after so many years they would try to address that problem. But, you know, the game is still really solid. I've got both on my shelf. I've got the Berlin, London one. I've got the Paris, New York one. And I can pull out any of those maps for the Solo Underground Challenge or with other players. And it's just a really neat game. I am kind of surprised this one didn't take off more. But, I don't know, such is the way. Perhaps it's the cult of the new thing, because this is like, oh, this is a new implementation of a game that was 2006. Well, that's old. Don't care about old games. All I want is the new thing. And does it come in a box that's this big and take me 4 hours to set up and 4 hours to play with a million mechanics? No, well, I'm not interested. That does seem to be the way of a lot of gamers these days.
The Magnafalix 302-inch TV. It's bigger.
Oh, hell!
Number 3, 2526. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these games are just very closely nestled in the 2000s, but 2526, this is kind of my polyomino choice. So, you know, there's a lot of polyomino games out there. I mean, we've had the great Wispwood from the last year. You know, there's all sorts of different Tetris-y games. And granted, I seem to have burnt out on a lot of them. Although there were ones that have come and gone over the years, like Barren Park. You know, loved it before, but then it got replaced by this game. And then, to be honest, other polyomino games that have come out are kind of already pre-replaced by this game, because this game does it in a 20 to 30 minute time frame, looks the part, is cheap as chips, smaller box, and yet it's still the same Tetris-y feel. I have sung the praises of this game so much. Alice's Garden. And when Kiender used to be around, I mean, they had it on there for cheap, and God knows, I must have, got them to sell every single copy that they had. This was done by Maldito Games, a Spanish publisher, I believe. And this is, you can play it solo, but honestly, just play it with 2, 3, or 4 players. But this is a gem of a polyomino game, and yet nobody else talks about it. I'm the one who brings it to players, and they go, oh, we've not heard of this one, this could be cool, and then they instantly love it when they try it, because it's just such a simple game, but it does what it says on the tin. Except look at all this. Wow. You have got these bags with, proper, nicely stitched bags with custom embroidery on them, with all the different shapes in there. You've got your board, your Mad Hatter hat, but the idea is that you lay these bags out, and whoever player turn it is, they choose a specific bag and draw out tiles which everybody takes turn drafting from. And then you place them on your board. But these tiles, they are small, so you have to obviously be able to focus on these. But you end up with some very tough decisions about where you want to put stuff. I mean, you've got rose bushes, you want to have a big rose bush. You've got chess pieces, you want to put them on the road because it's a chess road. Mushrooms, you want to have a couple in a column but no more. Trees, you want them spaced apart. And, so when you're trying to fill up your little board, and it's not that big, I mean, it's literally only, yay big. So it's not a huge board in the slightest. You've got more freedom of where they can go to begin with, because nothing has to always connect to something. But it gets harder and harder to try and fit stuff on, and the game ends when somebody can't go anymore. So there's kind of like a, is it going to break anytime soon? I don't know. You don't have much space on yours, and you haven't been that efficient, so you're trying to be efficient because you lose negative points if you're not. It's a really solid game for polyomino lovers that is easy to teach, looks the part. It's a very beautiful, like cover and very nice aesthetics. And you buy this game for like £10 to £15. Forbidden Island style like prices. And all these other games that are smaller and just a bunch of cards, and they cost like £20 to buy or something like that. And yet you can buy this one dirt cheap. And this is why I don't own a lot of polyomino games anymore, because frankly, why would you need to have a polyomino game that takes an hour or this? I mean, Planet Unknown and what was the other fairly dull one, Rebuilding Chicago and stuff like that. Even the Feast of Odin, which frankly, or whatever, Feast for Odin or whatever. Everyone keeps correcting me on the title as if anybody gives a monkeys.
So nobody cares.
That one, it takes like 2-3 hours to play the wretched game with players, and probably won't be on my shelf much longer. So, why do I need games that big for Tetris stuff when this one exists? I mean, I'd rather play this than Patchwork. I'd rather play this than Calico. Does that count? Yeah, I suppose it does. There's a lot of polyomino games that frankly this one just beats out, because it does it in the right amount of time, gives you the right amount of thinkiness, and is easy enough to just bring out and teach to people who have never played games before. It really is super solid, and nobody talks about it other than me. Why?
I think she's pretty.
Quiet, bud.
Number 2, 2556. I debated with this one because one thing I've also tried to do is not take a game that's too recent. But I feel like this one is not that recent. I mean, we're talking a year and a half, I think, for this one. So maybe this one hasn't had enough time, but there are games about that age which I've also disregarded for that purpose. But still, this is 2556, so it's 2,500. And when I look at whether people are playing this game, they just simply aren't. And yet, it's a really solid game. I think some creators were too harsh on it. Maybe I was too lenient on it. I don't know. I mean, I gave this one, the highest rating I could. Maybe in, retrospect, it probably should have been a 9, not a 10. But I still would give this a seal of distinction because it looks the part, it is beautiful, it is cheap to buy, the rules are not difficult, there's plenty of choices in the game, it's still a pretty solid, kind of worker placement allocation system, and yet this is from a publisher who seems to be only capable of making 4-hour overly complex monstrosities. It is, it's Emberheart. This one does not get enough buzz. But it is gorgeous, it is well produced with the insert, it's all the setup, and I just think that this one should be a damn sight higher than 2,556. I really do. I have got the insert in here, so, I can set this up without any trouble at all, and it looks lovely, and you buy this for less than £30. This was like a £25 game. how expensive are other board games at the moment where you just get like trash as the components, or you don't get that much in it? And here you get, really nice cards, with nice artwork on them. You get, little miniatures in there. You get wooden pieces. You get some cardboard tokens in that as well. But for the price you pay, I think you're getting a bargain. But I like the fact that it's basically How to Train Your Dragon, the board game. So you've got your dragon companion that you can level up in 3 different ways. You've got the board, which basically is you place your workers on the spots, and then the more that you bid, the earlier you go in turn order, so there's a bit of a usurping. You're definitely interacting with other players. This is not a solitaire game by any means. Really, this game only had 2 flaws with it. One, the mountain section is a little bit janky with how the rules of it work. Takes a little bit of explaining to other players. Minor thing, okay? The other thing was, in my opinion, not that big a deal because it never really affected my games, but people were worried about the fire track. The fire track tokens that were on there, depending on the spread between first and last, depending on how many points you got as a bonus at the end. But there wasn't any problem that you faced if you were at the max of the fire track and you took on more fire. It was a legit design flaw, but I never found it to break any of my games. But a lot of people moaned that it was a problem, and for some reason thought the game was broken as a result. Seriously, that's the worst thing you could think of. But they've now put out an official thing that says, right, if you are at the top of the fire track, this happens if you take another fire. So some negative happens. And it didn't really happen to me in the games I played. It certainly doesn't happen now with that rule put in, so it's fixed. There you go, that problem's fixed. So why aren't you playing this game? I'm not saying it's the best thing since sliced bread, but it ticks all the boxes. Looks the part, easy to teach, fun to play, choices to make. Could there be a little bit more variety in the cards? Yes. I mean, it would be cool if they put out an expansion for this, where they just basically increased the card decks and gave you a bit more variety in that aspect. Yeah, that is a negative. But I still think that playing this game every now and again, is just a good amount of fun. I can bring this out easily. People enjoy it when they play it. I can play this with light gamers and they get it, So, and, with the How to Train Your Dragon aesthetic, with Andrew Bosley's great artwork, there's just a lot to like about a game that barely cost you 25 to 30 pound. Even Essen, it costs less than 30 quid. For that kind of price, you're just it just boggles the mind why you wouldn't give this a try at that. Nope, let's go buy this £150 Kickstarter game because it has a few miniatures and a bunch of other stuff you don't need. Here you go, Giant Crate the board game. Here you go. Here's my collection of all these shelves, and the only games I've got are Gloomhaven, Voidfall, and I don't know, Iridia Where We Dare Tread. I don't know, games that cost a fortune or something, because that seems to be what people will gun for. They'll gun for all these giant games that are just unnecessary bloat. This is not bloat. This is everything you need, and for cracking small price as well. Deserves a lot better than $2,500.
Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
And my number 1 underrated game, 1876. It's been dropping over time, and I do think this one needs a lot more buzz. It's from Queen Games, if that gives anybody a clue, and this is the deck builder category. Yes, this is a deck builder that really needs more love. I mean, there's not a lot of pure deck builders these days. They always tend to be bolted onto something else like Dune and Lost Ruins of Arnak and that, but this one is a pure deck building game. And it is still one of my favorite deck builders in existence. It's beautiful, it's cheap, it's got 2 expansions, of which one is better than the other, but still, I mean, they're not bad. They're good to get for more variety, because you get more runestones. That is it. Runestone is this game, and I love it. It's cheap, beautiful, and really easy to play. But it feels like one of the most unique deck builders I've ever played, because the premise of the game is really straightforward. You're racing to get to a certain amount of points. You have a bunch of these colored gems. You collect the gems, you use them to buy artifact tokens, collect the sets, trade them in for points, job done. That's the generic stuff, okay? The stuff we've seen before. Here's the unique bits though. Every time you trade in one of those sets, no matter how many you trade in, you get a runestone power, and you can have up to 4 of these. With the expansions particularly, you've got a lot of different varieties of how these powers come out, but even if you just stick to the base game alone, there's still some solid powers there. And you might think, well, okay, well, if I trade in the bigger set, I get more points. But then I get the powers less frequently. So do I trade in quickie sets to begin with and then just get a couple of stones and then focus on that? Or do I just say, you know what, I'm just trading in little sets and I just want my powers really quickly? All of those strategies work because there are other ways on the cards that you can get points. So it doesn't have to be just artifacts. But again, where's the really unique bit? The card system itself. The cards have got an effect on it, right? And you play 2 cards at a time. All the time. You always play 2 cards. They come in different suits and they do various things like roll a bonus die or collect gems or trade in gems or get victory points for various things. And you play the 2 cards and they've got numbers on them because your starter cards have all got numbers higher than 100. And the ones that you buy during the game with the mana resource on top of the cards, which requires you to focus on particular colors, you know, is what is effectively the defining feature here, because those numbers, when you play the 2 cards, the lowest number is retained, the highest number is trashed from your deck. So the starter cards go away practically instantly and all the other cards will vary. But this game is basically one where you don't have to do a secondary thing to trash cards. You know, games like Dune Imperium, it's not impossible to trash cards unless you really focus on it, and even then it barely happens. And there's other deck builders I've played, you know, recently where it just feels like you have no way to trash cards out of your deck and it's not even worth aiming for it. I'm trying to remember what the one I played recently was, but it had that same problem where you could trash a card out of your deck, but what did it matter? You never shuffled your deck enough, or the game wasn't long enough for it. But this one, the game does it for you. So if you play a lot of cards in succession, your deck trashes itself and you've got to get more cards. So it makes you buy more cards. But then you've also got that decision of, well, I want to play these 2 cards because I want to do this, but if I do that, I've got to lose this dragon card. This dragon card's pretty sweet. Is there anything else I can play that has a lower number than the dragon card? And then maybe, like, keep it in circulation. Or do I just accept it's going to have to go, use it, lose it, and buy something else later? And the cards themselves can give you strategies to aim for. Like, there could be ones that trade, you know, gems in for points on your cards. Well, you know, if I'm going to focus on that, then I've got the rune stones to go with it, and I don't have to worry about getting artifact sets. You know, there's a few different ways that you can play it, and the expansions add a couple extra tweaks as you go through. You know, more card types, little subboard, which, honestly, I must admit, out of the 2 expansions, I mean, the only reason you really get the last expansion is because it gives you a lot more rune stones. The subboard that you move along with the mushrooms and that on it, I can take or leave, it's not that great. But the first expansion basically is an auto-include because it gives you more card types and some other bonuses that you can grab nice and easy. But this is such a really cool deck builder. It's simple, and yet it's got a decent amount of variety, and yet it's so unique compared to other deck builders, and nobody talks about it. I'm the one who sings the praises of this, but every time I mention this game, people come on the comments and go, oh yeah, I love rune stones, or I've played that was really good. And nobody recognises it when I take it out of my bag, but when I put it on the table and when we've gone through a game of it, they realise, whoa, okay, that's actually pretty sweet. Where can I get hold of this? God knows. I mean, it's certainly, as far as I'm aware, well, I thought it was done in print, but didn't Queen Games reprint it recently? Or aren't they saying they're going to reprint it? I can't remember. But I don't pay a lot of attention to Kickstarters, let alone Queen ones. But Runestones is a solid deck builder. It is, maybe there was a Runestones big box. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Might have to look it up. But yeah, Runestones, solid deck builder. It is a game that is not ranked as low as some of these other ones, but frankly, you just never see it played. I never see anyone at a convention bring this out. I don't see this in any board game cafes. I'm the one who has the copy of this game in the friggin' UK, it seems. Well, I'm sticking to it, and I'm keeping it, because this is one of my favourite deck builders, hands down.
Why didn't somebody tell me that he had one of those things?
So there you go, top 10 underrated games. We're talking positively here. See, I can be nice sometimes. Everybody thinks I do nothing but rag on games. No, there are a lot of games I enjoy, case in point. And I am not one that is succumbing to the cult of the new, and I am certainly not somebody who is like, you know, oh, hype for games or anything like that. No, I will judge a game based on its pros and cons and make my own decision on this front. That's why I don't really do much with Kickstarters. But there was a few other games that I had on my honourable mentions list here. So, what have we got here? I did consider Jackpot from Dranda Games, but I thought that's too recent. Only came out in May, so that's too soon. It's still only ranked 13,819, but it's too soon. So what do we have? We had Tax the Rich, 5,881, solid trick taker. We had Echoes of Time, a series. We had The Rich and the Good. But, you know, some of these games I felt were a little too recently. So the main honourable mentions I want to mention is The Lost Code, really solid deduction game. You know, really, you know, good deduction game. Very thinky. You constantly make mistakes in it. But, yeah, ranked 3,751. I think this is a better game than it's credit for. Tidal Blade's Banner Festival. This was from... I can't remember, was this Lucky Duck Games? Or, I forget who published it, but it's a really solid trick taker, and it's something a little bit different as well to other trick takers. But, yeah, just came and went, nobody really played it, but if you can get it, give it a try, because it's dirt cheap. Old West Empresario, 4275. It's down here next to Pioneer Days, which is ranked higher. Old West Empresario gets a little fiddly with the amount of different scoring effects it has, but it's a cool game where you're building up a Wild West style town and the buildings score in different ways. You're drafting dice that allow you to activate the buildings as well as place them. Really solid game. Leaf, 2,579. This from the same person who brought out, I think, March of the Ants and Canopy and stuff like that. Leaf is a very nice, simple, casual game. You place these giant leaves on the board. You're trying to connect the tips to each other, and the more tips you connect, the more actions you can do, but the color of the leaf dictates the type of action you can do. Really casual game, but really nice concept for it. 9 Lives, mentioned that as another trick taker I've played recently. I'll talk more about that in another video. Not a review for it, but I was going to do a small games video compilation from the UK Games Expo, so I think 9 Lives will feature in that one. Redwood and Tiwanaku, these two games both behind me here. Redwood, the sort of gimmicky game where you're taking photographs of animals and you've got those different templates that you use. Very nice, cool game. And Tiwanaku, Minesweeper, the board game. Wonderfully produced, gorgeous looking game, but you can play it solo, you can play it with other players, and it is essentially like playing Minesweeper with a couple of extra tweaks in there. But it was a solid game, and it got good reviews, it got a decent amount of praise. When do you see anyone playing it? Either of the games, they come, they get rated highly, and then they go, and the only ones you hear people talking about are, again, big giant crate Euros. And this is the way of the world. You know, when you go to conventions and when you go to these big events, the main people you see there are the ones who are essentially still a minority when it comes to gamers, but they're the ones who have the big, giant 3 to 4 hour Euros, which is what they will play. So they're the ones that you see on tables, not the light stuff. And I do like some of those games as well, people. I mean, Christ's sake, I got Mind Clash here, I got Lacerda here, Great Western Trail New Zealand in the other room, Avalon the Riven Vale has just been delivered to me to have a look at, Star Wars Rebellion, Forbidden Stars. I mean, I got big games here, okay? Edge of Darkness, so that's a big crate. You know, there are big games, and I've got big Euros here as well. But I do like to think of myself as having quite a wide spectrum of games that I like, you know, and, you know, I try to cover a lot of the bases, but, you know, a lot of these ones you just don't hear about. It's always those big, massive crate games that get all the buzz, and I think some of these games are ones that should be given a better look. So there you go, there's my underrated games list with a few honorable mentions. What are your underrated games? Let's try and stick to, I know I wasn't entirely on this, but let's try and stick to 2,000 or lower on Board Game Geek. And it's got to be a game that you just don't see played very much. You know, you're like one of the few people who sings the praises of it. And, you know, why do you think it's underrated? Get it in the comments. This will be a pretty good discussion point. So that's it for me on this episode. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and share it on social media. Get it on the Facebook groups, get it on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. Put the word out there, because let's face it, YouTube doesn't want to do anything to help creators anymore, which is why we're seeing them drop off lately. So somebody's got to help me, and it's got to be you guys. I'm sorry, but I'm very grateful. If you want to help support the channel funds-wise, the Patreon is always open. This is what allows me to go to conventions, you know, get the copies of games that I don't get as review copies, and it basically helps to keep the channel going, pay the subscription fees and everything, so that it's not cutting into my own living conditions. You know, I'm grateful for every Patreon that's on the system. You help keep this channel going. So until next time, remember, it's only a game, and I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video, so take care.